Mic on.
Hello and welcome to Total Warhammer 2. Today, at the request of a friend, we'll be doing an Eye of the Vortex campaign.
We must preserve
with
this
none
world.
other than the Witch King of Nagarond himself, Malekith.
Mic off.
The world has seen countless murders, but one killing stands above all others. One death that has shaped the world. Malekith, son of Anarion, was betrayed. The Elven princes crowned Bel-Shannar as the second Phoenix King. So Malekith brooded and poured his hate into a single cup. Malekith toasted Bel-Shannar, then stepped over his dying body and into the sacred flame of kings. But the fires stripped his flesh, and with a final scream, he hurled himself back from whence he came. His body was taken north, and a suit of armor forged. Malekith was reborn. The Witch King. And in his shadow, legions raised. Decades of civil war followed. Then Malekith embarked on the most ruthless of plans. His sorcerers would unbind the magic of the Great Vortex. Created by Kallador Dragon Tamer and his elven mages, the Vortex siphons the winds of magic, keeping the demon tide at bay. Malekith's spell was flung at the Vortex, but Kallador himself broke through the mists of time to deflect the titanic force back at its casters. The Shadowlands were ravaged, sundered.
You live. You die. You live. You die. Servants, you amuse me.
The dragon with two tails hangs in the sky, and you indulge in petty games.
You summoned me, Your Highness. You bring this witch here.
She's well versed in lore and prophecies.
She will betray you, my son, as all have done.
She's indebted to me. I have her soul. Step forward, Felicion Heartkeeper. The comet disrupts the vortex. Whilst it is weak, a prophecy can be fulfilled.
Of a king who consumes the heart of Ulthuan. My son will take its power and our vengeance.
Find the Oracle. She knows what to do.
I am willing to serve, to earn my soul's release.
Mic on.
The fulfillment of a dark prophecy beckons, my subjects. All have felt the unraveling of the great vortex by the twin-tailed comet. Yet, we are not alone in seeking to yoke its power. The undervermin march against us in number, driven to suicide against my wrath in service of some mad scheme. The Skaven run rampant across the wastes of Nagaroth in my absence, plundering its arcane resources. My return shall ensure their agonizing deaths. Yet the Vortex remains the greater prize. It shall be mine.
Alright. Dark Elves. Quite
Come,
literally,
see my
every
coat.
crime under the Witch King Malekith, in the lands of Nagron and the rest of the Druki, every crime is a crime punishable by death, no matter how minor, no matter how large.
Black Tower.
They're all punishable by death.
The cold winds rise.
It appears the Skaven have gone and assaulted my fair city and think they get away with it.
Think me fool, fool!
I'll let him retreat up a little bit.
Very well.
And now for Dark Elves, their entire economy runs off slaves.
Curse this snow. Fight for me,
Easy victory.
or
Not
die.
even having to
Play
take
them first. Take them captive. Bring me their skins.
very
Moving.
good replenishment right there, so worth taking that. Plus the
King
addition of
Malekith.
slaves will increase our income.
Merciless.
But unfortunately, these elves do not have any
The
ability
Witch
to
King is
actually
victorious.
recruit when they're not inside their lands. And Skaven, being the subterranean rat men that they are, none of their lands will actually show up on the map until I move in to discover them.
Death follows.
So if I'm lucky, it appears I am, I can actually take this as well without much hassle. Although I would very much like to minimize my casualties.
Merciless host.
Auto calc is definitely not being very favorable to me. But in the interest of time and keeping these videos digestible, I'll only try to keep it to half-hour recordings at the most, depending on length of sieges and battles. Yikes, only 7 winds of magic. We can gamble and hopefully get something better there. Ronald is with me and I over doubled my investment. That's wonderful.
Dread spears.
Malekith.
Bolt throwers. Dark elves.
Like my melee units up front. Archers like these generally have a good firing arc so they can fire over top of my units. Don't really need skirmish mode because they're not going to be running from me very much.
Advancing.
I
Battle
want
calls. Druki. Stop. Druki, forward.
Lord of Nagaroth.
I'd like to
I
mount up
depart.
closer.
Hear my words.
Slow them down with spells. And these crossbows are going to tear them up really
Dark
bad.
swords.
I would like you all to
Dark
target
elves.
those. I'm
We
not
are ready.
entirely certain that my...
Death.
Before we get there we go. Now they're starting to see them.
Nagorothi. My king. Nagarothi! Carnage awaits! Slaughter them!
Most of what he's trying to fight me with are slaves, so they won't hold
I
up very
will
well in a
have
battle.
destruction.
Especially when I'm casting spells. Skaven aren't exactly known for their bravery to begin with. Letting them bring slaves just makes them weaker. Now, for the Dark Elves in combat, should I kill enough, I'll get a buff that I can activate that makes my units kill even faster and even reinvigorates them.
Rookie! Die, weaklings! Dread spears! Dealers in death! Destroy! Kill them!
Attack! Attend me!
Dark shards! Stop! The merciless host! Advance! Rookie!
Yeah, these Skaven are shattering from the loss of so many in their army. So I'll hardly even need to pursue them. Shame, I was really hoping to get enough kills to use that murderous mastery, but I'm not gonna
Malekith,
complain.
come forth!
My mouse sensitivity appears to not like my spells.
We lose it!
And they have shattered from army losses. Now, for a settlement siege such as this, the loser or occupier of the city will automatically lose all armies if they are to fail defense. So if you were to station an army inside the city during the fight and lose, that entire army along with the garrison will be wiped out at the end. And only losing 13 units is really good.
Swell
And
my
I wouldn't make a
coffers.
whole lot of money off of that, but
The victor.
having extra slaves would not be a bad move.
King of the Druki.
Now let's see. I believe I would like him to... Inspiring Presence would be a better first go. Focus on making armies a lot stronger. Now, more dark shards. Those and go back to the abilities. Shielded Sea Dragon. Now, what makes dark shards especially dangerous, even in the early stages of the game such as this, is armor-piercing missiles. Just those alone become very, very dangerous against most factions, because even early on, most
Relations
factions
with
do
foreign
not
powers
have
may be
a
managed
whole
through
lot of
diplomacy,
armor.
my lord.
But
Consider your
certain ones
situation
like the
carefully
high elves that
before
begin the
accepting
game
any
with this
agreement.
good amount of armor it can be a real problem to burn them down with most early game factions. They want me for free armor, just capture 5,000 slaves. Not a very hard task.
Malekith, King of Nagaroth.
Now, unfortunately, just because of how I've been behaving, my settlements are very, very unhappy. And slaves also, reasonably so, increase this unhappiness. But that said, they still also do increase money gained.
The people grow restless.
You can control this.
Red King.
Oh my. Ah, Malice Darkblade. Now, for a Black Ark, those are actually entire Dark Elven cities that are magically kept afloat in the ocean. It's how they ultimately survived the backlash from failing the spell that was to unbound the Vortex. At a crucial moment, they actually were able to raise their cities and turn them into basically floating cities. So when the floods came, while several of the cities were completely wiped out and destroyed, they did manage to survive. Now that I've gotten stronger, I can just reliably auto-calc these cities.
You still with you?
And I do not want to just forcibly destroy the city this time because they are already very unhappy with me for constantly doing that. And demanding highborn hostages will allow me to try to control this public order a bit. Now, unfortunately, we also do not get an encamp stance, which would essentially allow me to recruit while inside enemy territory, as well as replenish my army. All I can actually do is raid or ambush, both of which are actually very useful to me even so, just because of the damage it does to the enemy society as far as public order and just forcing them to come out and deal with me, but it also gains me money and helps replenish my troops. I'll try these units. They usually are not very good, and bleak swords, I cannot recommend them at all. They seem really cool, but pound for pound, they're very weak compared to dread spears.
Helebron! Bandying words with you will...
But my main goal for the moment is going to be getting rid of all these Skaven. Ooh, more scrolls. Oh my. Because what they're doing is causing corruption in my land. And that corruption is reasonably so making my people get very upset. torture posts so my people will kind of relax a little bit. They're still a bit miffed about the whole me having slaves thing, on top of constantly taking over lands. Now chances are he's got a few armies in there.
I am the Witch King.
And very, very soon I'm gonna have to deal with a rebellion.
Painstaven.
Cease your provocations.
Although I could possibly just recruit a new lord to help kind of deal with that. I don't see a point in giving armor piercing damage to a mage because you never ever want them in a melee fight if you can help it.
Lord of the Black Court, Dread Lord of the Druki.
Well, I can't give him any troops just yet, but
Our distraction.
Malice appears to be trying to take out one of the high elves down at the base of the map. Also, if you note, just looking at the main campaign map up here, you'll notice similarities to certain lands. For instance, down here, the shape of the continent is that of Africa. Over here, loosely based on South America, which, for better or worse, makes this all of North America.
Feared by all.
And now to get his army up and running. And unfortunately for the early game, I really need to get my public order under control, otherwise I'm going to be under constant threat of rebellions.
In his clutches. All bow before the Witch King.
Now, the main goal is to collect Hikari's scrolls. Or Hekarti's scrolls, sorry. And then perform each of these rituals in sequence. And at the end of them, if I manage to complete all of them, I'll be to do a final battle. First things first is to get rid of these rats. Which, for whatever reason, they're not going to run from me, so we'll auto-cap. Oof, I actually lost a unit of spearmen. That's bad, but it's alright. I force him to retreat. And I've unlocked 2 rights now. One that gives me higher replenishment rates, but also kills the slaves that I've acquired 50% faster, and then another to sacrifice 100 slaves, but increase public order, as well as make my lords more loyal to me. Another trait of working with evil factions is they tend to have loyalty meters. Basically, winning a lot and doing well, your generals will likewise be loyal to you and be more reliable. However, constantly losing, suffering defeats in battle, losing provinces, or just not using that general in combat at all will make them become disloyal, plot and scheme against you, and even ultimately betray you and take the entire army you had stationed with them with them. And Now I've taken their final sequence of land, so if they do not turn back and stop me now, they will be forced out of the game and exterminated. But seeing as he only has a few meager slaves and a wounded Greyseer warlock versus a full army, I do not see him getting that chance at all and suffering. Malice even has his Bloodrack Medusas. Very interesting. But the way the AI functions, they will fight you every time, no matter what. If it is their final stand, they will fight you, regardless of any chances of not they have to win.
Yet the power of many scrolls are required to undertake it. My scryers tell me that many such artifacts remain hidden within sites of great antiquity. We must reach them before the Skaven.
And now, they in their infinite wisdom seek to attack me. But, seeing that it's just slaves,
You may regret this.
they have no chance of actually doing anything to me. And it appears those beastmen have disappeared. Something I generally do not like.
King of Nagaroth, King Malekith.
Beastmen are a real problem because they tend to spread chaos corruption.
Spreading misery.
And they were planning to ambush, but I discovered them, and now they are off the map as well.
Malekith, we shall not rest. My cruelty knows no limits.
And now while I could put him on a cold one, which would make him basically riding a lizard, I'm waiting for Seraphon, the black dragon. And give him eternal hatred so that he performs better in combat.
Dreadlord of the Druki.
Ah, dark shards with shields. So now, not only do they have crossbows with armor piercing, but shields to block any kind of damage from coming back to them.
I am Cain's instrument. Blood. I have little time or love. All right.
And now getting a trade agreement going with the Crone will be very useful. And I'll see about no defensive alliance this time, but that's alright. The plan is ultimately make them like me so much that I just confederate them.
But the only promise I make is to seek profit.
I can almost confederate Malice Darkblade right off the bat.
Dark deed. Yes, speak, guest, and we shall. Unparalleled.
Black Hawk.
Cruel
Now
sorceress.
what is weird,
Cursed.
which I assume it's because of the update where they added in Malice, Morathi no longer leads that faction. She used to start off allied with you. And while it would
Possession
be nice
of the
to
Circlet
have,
of Iron is key in gaining control of the Vortex, Your Majesty. But it must be imbued with ancient power. The Hags of Grond might be willing to divine the location of such a crux, should you meet their price.
It is clear that the Skaven intend some twisted sorcery to exploit the weakened Vortex. They must not interrupt my plans. The scrolls we have found so far are not yet sufficient for Felicion to begin the ritual. More must be found. Lord of the Black Tower. King
Let my
of Nagaroth.
men heal a bit.
I'm going. Burn it all.
There's nothing here, so there's no point. Just move up and get ready to take the city. And try to develop this land as best as I can.
What now?
And while I would like to Confederate Malice Darkblade, I don't want to be dealing with a war on two different sides of the world at the moment. When you Confederate a faction, you gain control of all their lands, armies, everything. Search the ruins. These puzzles. 1 and 1, 1 and 1, 1 and 1, 1 and 1. I'm looking for the odd man out. Not very good at these. Oh, an educated guess, and got a nice boost to. But unfortunately, because I searched the ruins, I cannot
Dreadlord.
give myself any extra things. No. First orders of business with most new settlements is going to be, for sure, building walls. All settlements start off with no walls of any kind, with the exception of playing Bretonnia. Bretonians, when they reach tier 3 of settlements, automatically gain walls for them. But without them, the enemy can attack you immediately during a siege. Whereas normally, unless they have some form of monstrous infantry, they would need to be able to build siege equipment, which would give you some time to try and fight back by getting another army in place, or at least finding a way to get them off your back.
I am the Witch King.
Tyrant of Nagaroth.
Now, this young lad, I will eventually be moving him out. I've only been actually keeping him here in the event of a rebellion, but I do not need that extra unit of air units.
Speak.
And unfortunately, my army is just gonna be
Chosen
painfully trying to regain itself in these lands. Because Malekith does not like mountainous regions. And despite his protests of saying he hates the snow, he does actually thrive in it. I do see that by confederating Malice I could get more Hecate scrolls. 9 turns until a full replenish seems a bit excessive.
Dread King. Fear me.
But gaining control of lands and getting your economy thriving is the name of the game.
The people are displeased.
And slowly trying to repair these provinces is also key. Because not only does that affect if you're going to end up dealing with uprisings or not, your cities will have better vision ranges as they get happier. Harganeth really seems to like me now. Hagarif has a weird aversion to me, but to be fair, I do sell him the solution to his demon problems at a hefty cost. We shouldn't have anybody to worry about.
Merciless. Attack.
Colonizing's getting more and more expensive.
Malekith, King of Nagaroth.
I'm not sure where we're getting provincial instability. There's nobody living here to be unstable.
Vex us further.
But I'm also unfortunately broke. Can I?
The people grow
Just something
restless.
for growth, but I already have it. And you do get Dark Riders and Cavalry, but I personally do not use Cavalry with these factions because for me, they're not strong enough to be worth using. But with that said, I believe that should do it for right now. Next time, we'll move down to Kragoth Deep and claim it. Possibly even go to war and claim the rest of these lands. I'd also like to move over and take Grond and utilize all of its resources. Maybe even clear out all the Chaos Lovers above me before any of that corruption spreads into my land and becomes a problem. Have a wonderful day. This is Mr. Dark, signing off.